Dr. Ngozi Orabueze, Deputy Prime Minister of the United States of Biafra, USB storm Finland, with USB cabinet in solidarity to support and defend Biafra Prime Minister Symbolic Ekpa, who is currently facing legal trial in Finnish court. She also announced a court-related Zoom meeting to discuss updates on the lawsuit between USB and the Federal Republic of Nigeria, set for June 14, 2025 at 7:00 p.m. Biafra time. Dr. Ngozi Orabueze confirmed that Biafra cabinet members attended Symbolic Ekpa's court hearing in Finland on June 13, 2025, offering visible and vocal support during his ongoing trial, portraying unity and solidarity within the Biafran leadership. Symbolic Ekpa's case in Finland is centered on terrorism-related charges filed by the Nigerian government, and according to Dr. Ngozi Orabueze, Symbolic Ekpa was fully prepared and well represented in court during the session. 3 individuals believed to be former members of the indigenous people of Biafra, ipob, were identified as witnesses who testified against Symbolic Ekpa in Finland, causing widespread feelings of betrayal within the Biafran movement. Symbolic Ekpa released a statement warning his supporters to act wisely, saying sometimes one has to pretend to be a fool in order to expose traitors within, and urging strategic patience in confronting internal enemies. Accusations were made against some ipob Directorate of State (DOS) members who reportedly went to Finland to act as prosecution witnesses on behalf of the Nigerian government, fueling intense backlash and public condemnation from Biafra supporters. Biafra Deputy Prime Minister Dr. Ngozi Orabueze reacted strongly, calling these actions a betrayal of the freedom movement, and reiterated that self-determination is a right that cannot be undermined by collaborators with the Nigerian state. Meanwhile, the court case of Nnamdi Kanu in Nigeria has been adjourned to June 16, 18 and 19, 2025, with hopes that the legal process will be concluded soon and he will regain his freedom after prolonged detention and legal struggles. However, public discourse has emerged among Finnish citizens and Biafran supporters online, where some Finnish individuals expressed sympathy for the Biafran cause and criticized the Finnish government for allegedly cooperating with Nigeria government under NATO and EU influence. Meanwhile, some critics have accused Nigerian state actors, including Governor Charles Soludo of Anambra State and his security teams, of orchestrating violence and insecurity in Igbo regions, allegedly targeting Biafrans, adding another layer of tension to the political and legal battles. In the quiet but determined corridors of justice in Helsinki, the capital city of Finland, something unprecedented and politically powerful took place on June 13, 2025. The event did not just involve legal arguments, court deliberations, or evidence submission. It became a symbolic occasion, a turning point, and a loud statement. In a manner that deeply resonated with the Biafran people and freedom lovers around the world, the Deputy Prime Minister of the United States of Biafra, Dr. Ngozi Orabueze, led a formidable delegation of Biafran leaders, collectively known as the Cabinet of the United States of Biafra, into the Finnish courtroom. They did not come quietly. They came with purpose, with presence, with protest, and above all, with love and loyalty for one man, Prime Minister Symbolic Ekpa. Symbolic Ekpa, a name now etched in modern Biafran resistance history, sat in the dock, facing grave accusations. The charges against him were built around terrorism, incitement, and alleged connections to unrest in southeastern Nigeria. The Nigerian government, operating from far away across the continent, had extended its long legal arm into Europe, attempting to use Finnish courts to silence or cripple a leading voice of Biafran independence. But on that day, Simon Ekpa was not alone. His courtroom was not an isolated box of legality. It became a space of politics, of history, and of moral judgment. And at the heart of that transformation was the unshakable solidarity shown by Dr. Ngozi Orabueze and the Cabinet of the United States of Biafra. Let us begin by describing what it meant for Dr. Ngozi Orabueze to arrive in Helsinki. Her appearance was not just physical, it was deeply emotional and spiritual for many Biafrans watching from across the world. Dressed in traditional Biafran colors with the dignity of her office clear in every step she took, Dr. Ngozi Orabueze reminded everyone, judges, lawyers, witnesses, and even silent observers, that the man in the dock was not a criminal, but a political figure fighting for freedom. Her presence was not just diplomatic, it was revolutionary. She came to Finland not to argue legal points herself, but to stand as a pillar, as a mother of a movement, and as a mirror to the world showing what unwavering support looks like. She was not alone. She brought with her several respected members of the Cabinet of the United States of Biafra. These were not mere politicians. They were individuals with lived experiences in exile, resistance, diplomacy, and spiritual leadership. Their collective presence in Finland sent a loud message to those who wanted to isolate Simon Ekpa. This is not a man abandoned, this is a man upheld. These were not silent guests. Throughout the courtroom sessions, they offered verbal encouragements, prayed quietly under their breath, and held placards outside the court building, reminding passers-by that the issue at hand was not one of crime, but of national self-determination. One could hear the chants outside the courthouse, "Biafra must live! Justice for Simon! Freedom is a right, not a crime!" The Finnish authorities, known for their calm and systematic approach to legal matters, were visibly surprised by the sheer emotional energy surrounding what they may have expected to be a procedural matter. But that day, the courtroom did not belong to procedures alone. It belonged to history. Dr. Ngozi Orabueze did not merely attend. She took the moment to connect with supporters globally. In a post-court announcement, she declared that a special virtual meeting would be held on June 14, 2025 at 7:00 p.m. Biafra time. The purpose of this meeting was to update Biafran citizens on the progress of both Simon Ekpa's case and the ongoing legal dispute between the United States of Biafra and the Federal Republic of Nigeria. This legal action, which many see as a form of political counterattack, aims to expose what Biafran leaders claim are consistent human rights violations, state-sponsored violence, and genocidal actions by the Nigerian government against the Igbo population. The announcement of this online meeting was not just about information, it was about connection. In her calm yet firm voice, Dr. Ngozi Orabueze called upon Biafrans worldwide to remain patient, strategic, and united. She urged them not to fall into traps of infighting, not to become weary in waiting, and not to allow internal sabotage to derail the movement. It was during this same time that a new and painful revelation came to light. 3 individuals, allegedly former members of the indigenous people of Biafra, appeared as witnesses in the Finnish court. These were not just ordinary witnesses. They were considered by some within the movement to be traitors. Their testimonies supported the prosecution. They aligned with the narrative crafted by Nigerian state lawyers who were desperate to brand Simon Ekpa as a dangerous man rather than a political leader. For Biafrans watching from around the world, this was one of the most painful blows. Betrayal is never easy to stomach. but betrayal by insiders, by those who once marched beside you, who once sang freedom songs with you, who once wore the same flag across their chest, can break a nation's spirit, or it can galvanize it. Simon Ekpa, known for his fiery speeches but calm strategic mind, responded not with insults, but with wisdom. In a written statement released shortly after the courtroom betrayal, he urged his supporters to act with patience and not emotion. He said, "Sometimes, to catch a traitor, you must pretend to be a fool." The meaning behind this cryptic but powerful sentence was clear. The movement must not react blindly. It must observe, identify, and cleanse itself of internal saboteurs without turning on itself. It was a message that combined the grace of a leader with the cunning of a strategist. The reaction from within the Directorate of State, the administrative wing of the indigenous people of Biafra, was mixed. But among grassroots Biafrans, the backlash was fierce. Online platforms were flooded with condemnation of those who traveled to Finland to testify against Simon Ekpa. Voices rose sharply against those perceived to be colluding with the Nigerian government. Names were called out, photos circulated, and amid all the anger, a deeper sense of sorrow spread. Many Biafrans had trusted these individuals. Now the trust had turned into ash. Dr. Ngozi Orabueze was quick to address the situation. In an emotionally charged speech delivered to Biafran diaspora leaders, she said, "To betray your people is to betray your soul. To stand with the Nigerian state against your brother is to reject your history, your pain, your heritage, and your future. We will remember who stood where when the storm came." Her words resonated deeply, not because they were dramatic, but because they were honest. While all this was happening in Finland, another court case that has shaped the Biafran struggle for over a decade continued in Nigeria. Nnamdi Kanu, the founder of the indigenous people of Biafra, was once again brought to court. His case, now familiar to most observers, revolves around issues of secession, unlawful arrest, and national security. The Nigerian judiciary announced that his hearing would continue on June 16th, 18th, and 19th of the same year. Hopes remain high among his supporters that this chapter will finally close, and he will be allowed to regain his freedom. However, years of delay, legal maneuvers, and alleged political interference have left many cautious. But the situation is no longer just about Simon Ekpa in Finland or Nnamdi Kanu in Nigeria. It is about a growing political awakening, a reawakening of an old dream called Biafra, now being reshaped by new leaders and modern tactics. As Dr. Ngozi Orabueze pointed out in one of her speeches, Biafra is not a memory. It is not a dream. It is a current, a wind, a living reality, and every day it grows stronger. Interestingly, while the Finnish courtroom focused on legal arguments, a separate conversation emerged among the citizens of Finland. On Finnish social media platforms and community forums, some individuals began asking questions about why their government was allowing such a politically charged trial to take place. Some questioned the influence of the North Atlantic Treaty Organization and the European Union on Finland's legal actions. Was Finland, in its efforts to align with global Western policies, allowing Nigeria's political goals to shape its judicial decisions? Some Finnish voices openly sympathized with the Biafran cause. They drew parallels between Biafra and other freedom struggles in Europe and the Middle East. They criticized the Finnish government's silence on human rights violations in Nigeria, and some even suggested that the trial was more about diplomatic appeasement than justice. The tension extended beyond the courtroom and into the political fields of Nigeria. Among those accused of actively suppressing the Biafran movement, is the current governor of Anambra State, Charles Soludo. According to multiple reports circulating among Biafran activists, Governor Charles Soludo and his security teams have been involved in targeted crackdowns on pro-Biafran communities. These actions, they claim, include arbitrary arrests, nighttime raids, and the alleged orchestration of violence intended to create fear and reduce public support for the movement. While Governor Charles Soludo's office has repeatedly denied these claims, the distrust remains deep, especially among those who have lost loved ones or seen their towns militarized. Back in Finland, as the courtroom sessions rolled on and the legal teams continued their arguments, what was most noticeable was the emotional weight carried by those in attendance. Every word spoken by the defense felt like a prayer, a plea not just to the judges, but to the entire world. Every moment of silence was filled with invisible voices of Biafrans scattered across Nigeria, Africa, Europe, and the Americas. There was no mistaking it. This trial had transcended its legal boundaries. It had become a moral battleground. On one side stood the representatives of a state determined to preserve its borders. On the other side stood people demanding that their voices be heard, their pain acknowledged, and their future decided by themselves. And so, as we reflect on the events of June 13th, 2025, we are left not just with facts, but with feelings. The presence of Dr. Ngozi Orabueze and the Cabinet of the United States of Biafra was not simply a headline. It was a declaration. It was a promise. It was a warning. It said to the world, "We are watching. We are not giving up. We are standing tall." As the legal proceedings continue, the Biafran people wait, not in silence, not in fear, but in solidarity. The day after the courtroom appearance of Dr. Ngozi Orabueze and the United States of Biafra cabinet was filled with high anticipation across all Biafran communities. That evening, the much-awaited virtual court update meeting took place as planned. Hosted on the Zoom platform, the digital event drew thousands of participants from all corners of the world. Diaspora Biafrans living in the United Kingdom, the United States of America, Germany, South Africa, Canada, Malaysia, and even some participants joining silently from southeastern Nigeria, despite heavy surveillance from security agencies. Dr. Ngozi Orabueze took the virtual stage like a seasoned stateswoman. Her background was calm and modest, just a simple flag of the United States of Biafra behind her and a traditional Biafran embroidered outfit. But her voice was rich with purpose. She opened the session by thanking all who stood by Simon Ekpa and expressed gratitude to the Biafran community for remaining peaceful, focused, and alert during what she described as one of the most defining moments in the modern history of Biafran resistance. She began by revisiting the emotional scene in the Helsinki courtroom. She described how Prime Minister Simon Ekpa walked into the court with his head held high, eyes steady, and heart filled with truth. She said his demeanor silenced even his most cynical critics in the room. According to Dr. Ngozi Orabueze, Simon Ekpa did not behave like a man under fire. He carried himself like a man on a mission. She explained how he listened attentively to the prosecution, occasionally made notes, and frequently locked eyes with his supporters in the gallery with a nod of assurance. His physical appearance was described as calm and calculated, but inside him, according to Dr. Ngozi Orabueze, was a heart burning with unspoken words and dreams too big for a cage. She then turned her focus to the legal strategy being employed. According to the update shared during the Zoom meeting, Simon Ekpa's legal team in Finland had prepared a detailed rebuttal to the terrorism allegations. The defense argued that the charges were politically motivated, driven not by actual threats or violent actions, but by Simon Ekpa's uncompromising advocacy for the Biafran people's right to self-determination. The lawyers brought attention to Finland's history of supporting free speech and civil liberties, and urged the court not to allow itself to become an enforcer of foreign authoritarian interests. The key argument centered on one point, that Simon Ekpa had not called for violence but had called for civil disobedience, and that civil disobedience in the face of oppression is not terrorism, it is justice. Dr. Ngozi Orabueze stated clearly that they had every confidence in the Finnish legal system. But she did not hide the fears many had that political pressure from European Union allies and North Atlantic Treaty Organization negotiators might quietly push Finland into using Simon Ekpa as a bargaining chip. The fear was not unfounded. Over the past year, Finland had strengthened its military and diplomatic cooperation with Western governments, especially after joining the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. This is the end of our news update. Please click the icon on the top right corner of your screen to watch my next video. You will enjoy it. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day. Goodbye for now.